Hi everyone, hello. Well, I hope you remember me. I'm your teacher, Sergio, and here I go. Here we are again in English class. We had the exam last Friday, and now we're studying this Tuesday with a new subject. It's the first subject of the rest of the term, and it's a very important and interesting term, which is modal verbs for situations in the past. And that is what this video is about. I'm going to talk to you about modal verbs for situations in the past. Well, for starters, to begin with this subject, I'm going to ask you two questions. I want to know if you've ever heard what a hypothetical situation is. I want to know if you know what is the meaning of hypothesis. And I want to also know if you know what is the meaning of speculation, or what do you do when you speculate. So, well, if you don't know, I'm going to tell you anyway. So, a hypothetical situation is a situation that is not real, is an unlikely situation. That is the first situation we'll have. And this is something that is very important for you to remember. And what is a speculation? Well, speculation is a guess. You know what is the meaning of guess? Well, guess is the action of answer a question without knowing the answer. What do you do when you speculate? Well, you answer a question without knowing the answer. Those two concepts are really important for you to remember. First, what a hypothetical situation is, what a hypothesis is, and what speculation is. Because we're going to work for the next, I think, 4 classes to model verbs related to situations in the past that have to do with hypothetical situations or with speculation. Well, this subject is actually not new for you. If you have taken the previous courses of English in Escuela, you'd remember that you learn about modal verbs and speculation. And you learned about modal verbs and recommendations, but you did it for situations in the present. This is something you know how to do already because you've done it already, but you've done it in situations in the present. For example, let me give you an example. When we have speculation talking about the present, we used must, might, could, may, can plus the infinitive. And for example, let me give you some examples. It says, where is Ivan? Do I know where Ivan is? No, I don't know. But I can speculate, telling you that he may be in his office. That is a way to speculate, but speculating in the present. And the second example is, why is Diana crying? Well, she must be sad. What I'm saying with that is that I am 99% sure that the reason why she is crying is because she is sad. And the second situation is verbs of recommendations talking about the present. We use should, ought to, have to, must for recommendations in the present. That's exactly what you learn in English 3. I feel sad. You should see a psychologist. You should see a psychologist. It's actually a recommendation. And the second example is when you come to class, you must not use your cell phone. It's not exactly a recommendation, but it's a way to use a modal verb to talk about obligation. This is something you already learned in English 3. So this is not something new. So what are we going to do in this term? What are we going to do with this subject? We're going to learn a very similar structure to something you have already learned, but we're going to do it with situations in the past. So, this is the subject, past modal verbs. Now, for the following classes, we're going to learn about the use of modal verbs in 2 different situations in the past. The first one is past modals for a hypothetical situation. For past modals for hypothetical situations, we're going to use 3 modal verbs. We're going to use could, should, and would, and a different structure for situations in the past. We're going to use the modal verbs here, and we're going to use have, and we're going to use the past participles. And the second situation we're going to learn is past modals for speculating. We're going to use must, can't, may not, might and might not also with have and the past participle. So for the next week, we're going to be working with past modals for a hypothetical situation, and then afterwards, we're going to use past modals for speculating. So again, what is the difference between the use of past modal verbs? Past modal verbs for a hypothetical situation. We use modal verbs to talk about a hypothetical situation in the past. This is quite similar to the way we use modal verbs for recommendation, but what are some recommendations we learned about in English 3 were related to situations in the present. Now we're going to talk about situations in the past. And what do we use past modals for speculating? We use modal verbs to speculate or to guess a situation in the past when we don't know what happened. I'm going to give you an example of this, but it's going to be later. Right now I'm just going to give you the difference. So remember, for past modal verbs for a hypothetical situation, in the past, we use should have to talk about the right thing to do, could have to talk about possibilities, and would have to imagine your own behavior. So for past modals for a hypothetical situation, what we do is use should have, could have, and would have in these three different ways. Should have to talk about the right thing to do, to talk about what would have been the right thing to do in the past. Could have to talk about possibilities in the past, past possibilities, and would have to say what you would have done, to imagine your own behavior. So let me give you an example. As you see, it's an example related to a student. So, a hypothetical situation in the past. Let's talk about the past. Let's talk about something that has already happened. Steve is 21 years old and had an English test last Friday at 7 in the morning. The night before, he decided to stay up late watching his favorite TV show. He went to bed at 3 a.m., although he knew he had to wake up early for the test at 7. The morning of the exam, he woke up at 8, got to class late, and the teacher did not let him take the exam. He got a 0 and failed the course, so that is really tragic. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it's not a good idea to oversleep when you have an exam, because generally teachers will not let you into the exams. So let me ask you one question. Was it correct? Well, I would say no, it was a bad idea. It wasn't a good idea to stay up late watching shows, and it was a mistake, and the situation got a bad consequence. What happened that he failed the test, he didn't present it, and he failed the course. So, let me ask you another question. What do you think Steve should have done? What should Steve have done in that situation? So, as I told you, we use should have to talk about the correct or the right thing to do in the past. So, one possible answer is he should have gone to bed early. So, it's a possibility. It's actually the right thing to do in the past was to go to bed early. So, he should have gone to bed early. Or we can say that he shouldn't have stayed up late. So we use the structure modal verb plus have plus past participle, same here, to talk about the right thing to do in the past. Remember that. Let me ask you a second or third question. What could have happened if Steve had gone to bed early? What do you think it's possible or would have been probable in the past if Steve hadn't stayed up watching TV? So maybe we can say that Steve could have arrived to exam on time. So Steve, it's possible that if he hadn't stayed up late, he could have arrived to the exam on time, and maybe, possibly, or probably, he could have taken the exam. But did he take the exam? No. Did he get to the exam on time? No. So we're talking about a situation in the past that cannot be changed. That's why we talk about hypothetical situations. So let me ask you a final question. What would you have done if you were Steve? So I'm asking you about what would you do if you were in the position of Steve? Any thoughts? Well, maybe if I were Steve, I would have gone to bed early. But I am not Steve. I am a different person. I would have done things differently. But if I were Steve, if I were in his position, if I imagine my own behavior, I would say that I would have gone to bed early. Or, in my case, I wouldn't have been late for the exam. So remember, we use the structure modal verb plus have plus the past participle here to say what you would have done if you were Steve. Same thing here, we use wouldn't, which is the modal verb, plus have, plus the past participle. Now, let me give you a challenge, and this is the exercise you have to do for this first module of modal verbs with speculation in the past. You can see the example, and you're going to talk about the situation. A question is, what happened to Falcao? Well, this is an imaginary situation. I'm not really aware. I don't really know a lot about football, but I'm going to give you this example situation. Last year, Falcao was driving his new car when he got into an accident. He crushed the car and hurt his knee. His recovery took 2 months, and during that time, he couldn't play neither with the Colombian football team nor with the Monaco. So what are you going to do? You're going to write a conversation between Falcao and a journalist using past modals to talk about this hypothetical situation in the past. You have to use should have to talk about the right thing to do. Could have to talk about possibilities in the past, and would have to imagine your own behavior. Your exercise is you're going to do it in pairs. You're going to write 15 sentences of a conversation, and you're going to use each modal plus have twice. So you're going to say, for example, he should have done something, he would have done something, he could have done something for a situation in the past. Remember that modal verbs for recommendations in the present are different. If I say that he should do something, that is a recommendation in the present, something he can do in the present. But if I say that he should have done something, that is related to a situation in the past. So keep that in mind and do the exercise. Well, this is me again. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions or any comments or even suggestions for these videos, because I'm going to try to be doing some more videos for the rest of the subjects we have ahead. So, next video is going to be about modal verbs in the past for hypothetical situations, for speculation, sorry. So just keep me posted. I'm going to give you the instructions on the chat. But I hope you enjoyed it, and, well, text me if you need anything.